The Treaty of Waitangi, or Te Tiriti o Waitangi, was signed by more than 40 Māori chiefs on the 6th of February 1840. It establishes British sovereignty in New Zealand, while preserving Māori ownership of land, culture and rights. Today, it stands as New Zealand's founding document and forms the basis of many of the laws we abide by.
Towards the end of the 1830s, New Zealand was on the brink of chaos. Sealers and whalers had turned Kororarika, now Russell, into the hellhole of the Pacific, a dangerous place rife with prostitution, violence and lawlessness. Despite British attempts to control their subjects, those involved pointed out that New Zealand was not a colony, and therefore British law did not apply. One such incident was the Elizabeth Affair.
In 1830, Captain John Stewart made the arrangement to transport 100 of Te Rauparaha's warriors from Kapiti Island to Banks Peninsula, the base of a rival tribe. Te Maiharanui, Te Rauparaha's target and leader of the Ngāi Tahu tribe, was not alarmed at the sight of a British ship offering trade. He was lured about the Elizabeth, where he and his wife and daughter were seized. Te Maiharanui and his wife were killed, after the Ngāi Tahu chief strangled his daughter, preferring this over her enslavement. In addition, Te Maiharanui's settlement was raided, and hundreds were killed and enslaved.
In spite of this, Captain Stewart's actions brought about no punishments whatsoever, as British courts could not give him a murder conviction. Britain knew action needed to be taken in New Zealand.
Further time pressure was added to the British Empire by colonisation attempts from other groups. Edward Gibbon Wakefield's New Zealand Company certainly sped up the process of colonisation in New Zealand, and was a significant contributing factor in the establishment of a treaty protecting Māori rights, particularly to land. Wakefield believed in systematic colonisation, and had produced several texts on colonisation before the formation of the New Zealand Company. Wakefield had learnt from a previous attempt at colonisation in Eastern Australia, which fell victim to squatters, and put forward that the key to systematic colonisation was buying land cheaply before selling at a sufficient price so that immigrant labourers would have to work for several years before purchasing their own land. Missionaries, anxious to protect Māori, saw that this would involve the exploitation of Māori in their land. Effectively, Wakefield would rip Māori off by buying land for far less than what it was worth, before selling to British immigrants. For this, missionaries began to pressure the empire into formally annexing New Zealand.
In 1838, French whaler Jean-Francois Langlois began to formulate his own plans for the setup of a French colony in Aotearoa, in South Island. A colonising company, similar to Britain's New Zealand Company, was set up in France in 1839. The gears were in motion. Britain had to act quickly, and they did. By the time the French ship Comte de Paris reached New Zealand in July 1840, the Treaty of Waitangi had already been signed, and New Zealand was a British colony.
Englishman William Hobson, to be the first governor of New Zealand, was given a set of instructions by Lord Normanby at the Colonial Office. This stated that he was to assume control of New Zealand by the free and intelligent consent of the natives. The treaty was drafted by Hobson and Busby, then translated by Henry Williams. New Zealand constitutional lawyer Moana Jackson argues that Hobson crafted the Māori Treaty to include language that would persuade Māori to sign and sugarcoat any issues, though we cannot rely on this because it is only one theory of many.
The treaty was presented to chiefs on 5 February 1840, where Hobson read the text and explained it, with the assistance of Williams as a translator. Immediately, Māori were concerned about the implications of such a document, particularly where it left their status as powerful chiefs. Te Kimera of Ngāpuhi had this to say.
We're all to be equal, then perhaps Te Kimera would say yes, but for Governor to be up and Te Kimera to be down. No, no, no. Oh Governor, my land is gone. Gone or gone.
However, there is some doubt as to the accuracy of this debate. At one stage, two Pākehā commented that Henry Williams was leaving out or glossing over issues of missionaries taking land from Māori. One, named Trader Jack, said,
"Begging your pardon, sir, but it's that Mr. Williams. He's not translating a good half of what the Māori say. He's not translating half of what you say either."
Hearing this, we cannot even be certain that Hobson and the various assembled rangatira were debating on the same issues. Hone Heke and Tangi Wakanae's speeches advocating the treaty seemed to swing the opinion of the rangatira. Enough so, in fact, that a group gathered outside James Busby's residence the next day to sign. Hobson, shocked that Māori had not taken the 3 days he had allowed for deliberation, rushed out to oversee the signing of the treaty, after only having time to grab his hat before leaving.
Hobson's ill preparation led him to declare that no further questions of the treaty could be asked. It was not a formal meeting, he declared, only a signing. Starting with Hone Heke, 40 chiefs signed the Treaty of Waitangi on the 6th of February 1840, which was to be followed by many more Māori chiefs, mostly men, but for 13 women, on the treaty's tour of the country in 1840. By the end of 1840, the Treaty of Waitangi had garnered over 500 signatures.
Unrest was caused almost immediately due to the differing Māori and English translations. In Article 1, Māori ceded sovereignty to the British in the English version, but only kawanatanga, translating to governance, in the Māori. The English version of Article 2 has Māori retaining rights to land and fisheries and the like, while Tino Rangatiratanga, full chieftainship in the Māori translation. Claudia Orange offers that this is due to the relative inexperience of Henry and Edward Williams as translators, and a harsh deadline imposed upon them, whereby the treaty had to be prepared by the 5th. This testimony should be trusted, as Orange is a well-respected treaty historian. The result of the mistranslation was one of dangerous confusion. New Zealand's first execution, the trial of Makatu in 1842, is a prime example of this. Under British law, the murder crimes of Makatu would be punishable by public hanging. But Māori culture deemed this form of death as a powerful insult, and preferred Makatu dealt with by harsh blows to the head with a meri. Māori believed that they should have the right to deal with the crimes of Makatu their way. Despite this, Hobson decided to execute Makatu under British law by hanging, an act which caused great offence to Māori. One observer of the hanging said afterward,
"His father killed my father in the wars of Hangi with the Waikatus. I never had my opportunity of revenging my father's death, and witnessing the death of Makatu will be utu for the act of his father." No, I am not satisfied. The man was my greatest enemy for my father's sake, but I would not have served him thus. I would have killed him in a fight, or I would put his head in an oven, but I would not have hung him.
The 1842 trial of Makatu put on display Māori uncertainty in the new British-led New Zealand. Hone Heke, the first man to sign the Treaty of Waitangi, took exception to the way British rule was changing the country. In 1845, he voiced his disapproval in a letter to Governor George Grey.
God made this country for us. It cannot be sliced. If it were a whale, it might be sliced. Do return to your own country, which was made by God for you. God made this land for us. It is not for any stranger or foreign nation to meddle with this sacred country.
This is an excerpt from a primary source, Heke's letter to Governor Grey, and can be relied upon as to conveying the feelings of Hone Heke at the time. In response to this, Heke chopped down the flagpole at Kororareka 4 times, the 4th being accompanied by a sacking of the town, as the prelude to the Northern Wars.
Heke and fellow Māori Kāwati sought utu, repayment for injustices done to them by the British government. Heke and Kāwati believed that the British, by assuming sovereignty of New Zealand in the years following 1840, had disrespected their mana and the mana of the Māori people. The Northern Wars consisted of three main power battles at Pukatutu, Ohaiwai, and Ruapekapeka. Eventually, Heke and Kawiti surrendered to the British and Tamati Wakanene, but there were no repercussions placed upon either by the British. Government publications of the time regarded the war as a resounding victory over the rebels, but revisionist history disagrees with this take. Historian James Bellach even goes so far as to say that Māori won the Northern War, though this has been disputed and criticised by other historians. Certainly, victory for the British is not as clear-cut as Governor Grey made it seem at the time. As a consequence of the Treaty of Waitangi, the Northern Wars only brought about an uncertain interval of peace, as described by historian Paul Moon.
Long term, the Treaty of Waitangi remains one of the most impactful documents in New Zealand's legal system. Today, the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi drive its influence in law, rather than its literal translations. According to the 1987 New Zealand Law Report, Section 9 of the State-Owned Enterprises Act 1986 is a firm declaration by Parliament that nothing in that Act shall permit the Crown to act inconsistently with the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, completely overriding the Act should it need to. This signifies the importance of the treaty and is consistent with the interpretation provided by the Treaty of Waitangi Act 1975, where it was ruled that the treaty signified a partnership between Pākehā and Māori, whereby each had to act in the utmost good faith towards the other.
Whereas on 6 February 1840 a treaty was entered into at Waitangi between Her late Majesty Queen Victoria and the Māori people of New Zealand, and whereas the text of the treaty in the English language differs from the text of the treaty in the Māori language, and whereas it is desirable that a tribunal be established to make recommendations on claims relating to the practical application of the principles of the treaty and, for that purpose, to determine its meaning and whether certain matters are inconsistent with those principles. The treaty and its principles are a part of New Zealand's constitution, forming the bedrock of law in the country with a binding of respect between Pākehā and Māori.
The treaty's influence on law and lawmaking today can be seen in a number of areas. One such area is in Parliament, where 7 seats are reserved for Māori. These are decided by voters on the Māori roll, a place offered to voters of Māori descent. The origins of these seats, at least in part, are owing to the Treaty of Waitangi. Article 3 of the treaty had guaranteed Māori the same rights and privileges of British subjects, and a wave of European idealism led the British to further these rights, establishing the Native Rights Act of 1865. James Fitzgerald, Native Minister, was an avid supporter of Māori seats in Parliament, saying, "Two rules are deeply fixed in my mind. One, to expect men to respect law who don't enjoy it is absurd. Two, to try and govern a folk by our courts, and at the same time to say that our courts shall take no cognizance of their property is amazing folly. 2/3 of the North Island is held under a tenure which is ignored by our law. Is it possible to govern any people by a law which does not recognise their estate and land? These seats survive, and today play a significant role in the decisions made by government influencing New Zealand's present and future."